my name is Giana Darling and I am a best-selling romance novelist. Today I am going to talk to you about what I read in March. So it's like a week into April and I actually read a lot of books in March. I feel like I ingested a lot of content, probably because I only just started getting stuck into my next manuscript around the end of March. So I had a lot of time to dive into some really good reads. So I'm really excited to talk to you about them. I've mentioned some of the other ones in my last couple vlogs in March, so I'll start with those. The first is Prodigal Son by Sarah Kate. It is the last book in her Good Brothers series. It can be read as a complete standalone. I've only read 2 books in that series, The Prodigal Son and The Homewrecker, which is actually the first book that I read by Sarah Kate. It's MMF and I totally fell in love. The Prodigal Son is an MM romance. It's also forbidden, like highly forbidden, and it's a rock star romance. Isaac Good is the brother, but he is known as Theo as his rock star pseudonym, and his family has been through a lot. He came from a highly religious background. His father was a preacher. Because of that, you can imagine that it was, a little bit difficult. They also were in the deep south and highly evangelical. So when he came out to his father, it did not go very well. And he essentially hasn't spoken to his father and most of his family in years. So he keeps in touch with one brother, but otherwise he just kind of lives his life as Theo, this glamorous rock star. He has like a nice found family, which is really apparent in the book, which I love, like any aspect of found family. If you've read any of my books, you know it's one of my favorite tropes. So I really loved that aspect of The Prodigal Son. But honestly, for me, it is 100% about the romance in Prodigal Son. I don't want to give too much away because it hasn't come out yet, but I will just say that the connection that the 2 main characters have is so beautiful. And I actually am going to use this moment to get a little bit on my soapbox about something that kind of bothers me. I see a lot of the times people will read a book and they'll be like, it was too insta-lust. And while I understand if they, have sex and fall in love in the first few pages, you're like, wow, that was really quick. But the umbrage that I have is that what connection have you ever had where I shouldn't say have you ever had, because I know that sometimes connections can grow, but I know that for me as a person, a lot of the times I will have an instant connection with someone. I look at many of the relationships in my life, not just my relationship with my husband, but with friends, where I could just, I locked eyes with someone and I could read their energy and it was just like, and we just kind of locked in place together, this connection, this tether between us. And so, and I would argue that why would you pursue someone? Why would you end up having a relationship with someone unless it was forced proximity or, maybe enemies to lovers, and again, there's some sort of forced proximity, or circumstances are bizarre where you would date someone without that instant connection. So I sometimes get a little bit annoyed when people are like, oh, it was too insta-love or insta-lust. I'm like, this is kind of how it happens in life. You meet someone, you have an instant connection with someone, and then you develop that connection. So I actually don't have any problem with insta-lust, insta-love, whatever you want to call it. I kind of think that that trope gets a bad rep, and I'm going to stand my ground on that. Let me know if you agree with me, but I feel like I cannot be swayed on this matter. Anyway, all that to say that Isaac and his lover have a really great instant connection. I'm not saying who it is because at the time of this recording, I'm not sure if Sarah has actually said who the other male interest is. And if you've read the whole world and the whole series, I think it's a bit of a surprise. So I'm not saying his name, but I will say that it's definitely forbidden and it really ties into Isaac's history, and so it's a very angsty and emotional read. And I will say it deals with some heavy topics like suicidal ideation and like homophobic language, and definitely check your trigger warnings, but it was done with such a deft hand. She really took the time to do research, to speak to the right people. I love that she also lists a hotline and resources that you can refer to if you're struggling with mental health issues. So yeah, I think that was done really well. So not only is it a really poignant read, I feel like it resonated really strongly with me, and I could feel that acid in my chest that I love to feel when I connect emotionally with a book, but also it's very spicy. And I love their spicy connection. There's praise kink, there's like a mild daddy kink. It's all good stuff, you guys, seriously. As you know, I'm a sucker for MM romance. I have 2 vlogs about my top MM romances, but honestly, The Prodigal Son is now one of my favorite MM romances. So highly enjoyed that, and I definitely recommend. Let me just see when it comes out because I'm not sure. One sec. On April 24th. So make sure that you add that to your wish list, and it will be in Kindle Unlimited. Okay, so next up, I read a release that just came out on April 3rd by QB Tyler, and that was The Nanny is Off Limits. I love QB Tyler. I will say she is one of my dearest friends, but I also love her books. We first bonded over Welcome to the Dark Side, which is actually one of QB Tyler's favorite books. So that was very cool. No surprise there. If she likes Daddy Zeus, she loves daddies. So she kind of specializes in writing hot dads, and Rowan was no exception. Rowan is the hero of The Nanny is Off Limits, and he is a widower who has a very high-powered job. I believe he's an architect. He works all the time, and he has 3 kids. And it's like a teenager, a preteen, and like a child. So runs the spectrum, and they all have their own issues that they're working through. And basically he's in over his head. His brother River helps him as much as he can, but it's pretty clear that he needs actual help. His son is acting out in class. He's kind of at his wit's end. He decides to look for a nanny, and somehow, as he kind of puts that out into the universe, he runs into this woman at the grocery store, and his daughter forms this instant connection. His youngest daughter forms this instant connection with this woman, and her name is Ellie. Kind of based on that instant connection that Ellie has with his daughter, he ends up asking her to be his nanny. She has nannied before, so it's not super random. She's got job experience, and she wasn't really looking to nanny again because she just graduated with her degree, but she decides to take them on because she honestly feels sorry for him because it's a lot. He's a widower, he has a high-powered job, and she can tell that he's in over his head. So she agrees to be the live-in nanny. Obviously, it's like forced proximity because they live together. It's forbidden because she's the nanny. There's a huge age gap, and it's just so delicious. Not only is it spicy because QB Tyler just excels in writing super spicy books with daddy kink with super sexy scenes, but also I felt like the emotional poignancy was really high in this book. I feel like it was her most emotionally powerful book, and it's probably tied for my favorite with Unconditional, which is my all-time favorite QB Tyler book, because the way that she developed these children and their personalities was perfect. They were all individual entities. They all contributed to the story. And a lot of the time I find when there are kids in romance, they're kind of shuffled to the side, or they have really shallowly developed personalities. But I loved the kids in the story, and I think that Brittany just did an amazing job with this book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars, and I'm so excited for The Cheerleader is Off Limits, which she just announced the other day on socials. And that's about Rowan's brother, River, who Rowan is like this buttoned up, high-powered CEO vibes hero, and River is the tattooed football coach that's kind of a bad boy, and he's gonna be with the cheerleader, and I'm so excited. It's so forbidden. I cannot wait to read it. I'm already hounding her to see when I can read it. So highly enjoyed The Nanny is Off Limits. It's live now and also available in Kindle Unlimited for you guys to check out. The other 2 books that I read in March, I still intend to do a vlog about them. I have been filming my reading and my reactions for them, but honestly at this point it's taking me so long to get through the series that I'm just going to talk about these 2 books for now, and I'll explain why it's taking me so long to get through the series. The 2 books that I read in the series so far are Assassin's Blade and Throne of Glass in the Throne of Glass series. Now I will talk about Assassin's Blade because I absolutely adored this book. I thought it was so good, so well done. Even though Selena is only 16 in this book, has this maturity. If you have not heard of Throne of Glass, you've probably been living under a rock, but this is like one of the most popular fantasy, romantasy series around lately, and I really wanted to read it. I'd already read Court of Rose and Thorns, which I highly enjoyed. I only have Nesta's book left to read, and I also loved Crescent City. Right now, as it stands, Crescent City, the first book, is my favorite book of Sarah J. Maas. Unmatched. I think it's my favorite one of my favorite fantasy books in general. So I was excited about this, and I really did love Assassin's Blade. I'm glad that I read it first, because having then gone into Throne of Glass, I really think that it made this a more complex and in-depth experience. Knowing her history, knowing Sam, I have to say, Sam, I did cry in this book. It was beautiful. It eviscerated me. I loved the kind of the journey aspect of it. It felt really like a classic fantasy novel where you're always on a journey, and it's kind of all these different tales of her as an assassin before the real events of the series kind of take place, and you get to know more about her history. So I loved this book. I'd probably give it like 4 out of 5 star, or 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. And then I went to Throne of Glass, and I have to say it took me so long to read this book. I kept putting it down and picking it back up, and I just was not connecting a ton with the story. I don't know if it's because, you know, I was talking to a friend and she said, I think it's because it's so YA. And it's weird because even though she's younger in this book, the main character, Selena, I did feel like she gave more YA vibes. I know also that Sarah J. Maas wrote this one first and then the second one, and then I believe she wrote this one. So this is also further along in her writing career, which is maybe why I also enjoyed this more. This is the first book that she published, so that could also explain it. But I just found this one, even though the world building was great, even though I enjoyed the characters, I wasn't on the edge of my seat, and I found it a bit of a slog to get through. So when I finished this, I was like, huzzah. I'm very glad I finished it, and I am excited to continue. I am on Crown of Midnight, the next book in the series now, but I've kind of taken a bit of a break just because I had such a hard time with this. I have heard from people that the third book is where it gets really good, so I need to keep going. I know I do. It's just hard when I don't have that much time to read to find that I'm slogging through something. So I read these two. I'd probably give this like a 3 stars, honestly. I didn't think it was amazing. I thought it was like, okay. So I read these 2 this month, and I do intend to finish the rest of the series, and I am vlogging it, and I will publish that at some point when I've done the series. Another book that I read that I'm actually so excited to talk about because it's my top read of 2025. I loved it so much. It's one of the best fantasy books that I've ever read. And now I'm on a fantasy kick, but I'm in a slump because nothing compares to this book, and it's not released yet. I know, I'm really sorry. Let me look up when it releases. I believe it's in April. Let me just see. So the book that I'm speaking of is Shield of Sparrows, and it releases on May 6th, so very soon. I was lucky enough to read an early copy because I happen to be lucky enough to be friends with Devney Perry, who is a prolific and amazing contemporary romance author. She's known for her like Indigo Ridge book and Merit Coach. I mean, she's known for so many different contemporary romances. She's like a #1 best-selling author on Amazon, so she knows her stuff with contemporary romance, but she is now segueing into romantasy, and sometimes that does not translate very well. But I am happy to say she crushed it with Shield of Sparrows. It is my top read of 2025. I think it will remain my top read of 2025. I loved it that much, and it's one of my new favorite fantasy novels. I don't want to give too much away because she hasn't revealed a lot, specifically who the hero is, but I will tell you the premise because I know, just trust me, pick it up on May 6th when it comes out. It is so good. So essentially it is about Odessa, who is a princess of her kingdom, but she's the older sister and she's kind of the forgotten sister. Her younger half sister, May, is the one that is kind of, she knows all the combat. She's the most beautiful one. She's the one that her father trusts with all the state secrets. And Odessa is engaged to the general, and, you know, she's just kind of forgotten. She just kind of fades into the background. And I wouldn't say that she's super content, but it's okay. She makes do with her lot in life until the upcoming marriage of her sister to the prince of the northern kingdom on the continent. Her sister is supposed to marry him on the equinox, but the prince ends up coming early to help with a problem with monsters on the coast. And so they arrive, and essentially what happens is, instead of agreeing to marry the younger sister, they take one look at Odessa and force the king to give her up for marriage with the Shield of Sparrows instead of her sister. I could rave about this book for forever. The world building is so unique, so lush and evocative. I really felt like I hadn't read anything like it before, which I love fantasy and it can get a little bit iterative. So I was just astounded with the twists, the turns, the world building. I absolutely loved every single character that was on the page that had any amount of like screen time. I loved Odessa, and one of the things that I really liked about her is that she's nothing special at first. You know, she's just the average girl. And I love that you really get to see an average person kind of thrown into this environment where she has to go on adventures, she has to stand up for herself, she has to learn how to survive, and she has to interact with these really strong characters who demand a response from her after a lifetime of basically being told to keep silent and out of the way. I just loved the character growth in Odessa. I absolutely love the love story, and of course I can't get more into it yet, but I will say that I think it's one of the best like fantasy romances that I've ever read. I loved the male main character so much. one of my new favorite book boyfriends, 100%. Yeah, I wish that I could tell you more about Shield of Sparrows, but because it hasn't released yet, I don't want to give anything away. I just will say that there's monsters involved, there's adventure, there's an incredible love story, amazing character growth. I thought Daphne did such a good job that, dare I say, I think that this is the best book she's ever written, and I love her contemporary romances too, and if you love them, just trust her and read them. And if you don't know her, trust me and read this fantasy novel. It is so good. I have not stopped thinking about it since I finished it a number of days ago, and I've texted Daphne a number of times just to talk about how much I love it, because I don't have anyone to talk to about it. So if you do read it, drop a comment below and let me know how you enjoyed it. So after that, because I was like, oh my gosh, I really need more fantasy romance, I ended up reading City of Gods and Monsters by Kyla Edwards. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, one of the reasons that I read it was because of the cover, which I just thought was great, and I also really liked the title. It gave me Crescent City vibes, in that it's a fantasy that is set in a world that feels like modern day. There's cell phones and technology and magic. It feels very modern. The hero has like an undercut haircut and tattoos, and I will say that I enjoyed it, but I did think that it was quite derivative of Crescent City, and I didn't love the hero as Darien Castle as much as I feel like I should. But I'm gonna continue the series. I would probably give it like a 4-star because I did enjoy it. Essentially, it's about this woman who is in this universe where there are Hellseers, which are basically immortals who have the sight, and they can track people by auras, and they can like see magic. So if there's wards on buildings and stuff, they can see it and see through it to what the magic is trying to shield. And then there's like werewolves, and there's vampires, and there's witches. The witches are called Venifka. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that pronunciation. Basically what happens is this girl, Lauren, which really bothers me, that name, because it's like Lauren, but Lauren, and I find it hard to say. Lauren is a human that was basically left at the doorstep of a temple and was adopted by this like pretty well-off witch family. And basically on the eve before she's supposed to start her, it's essentially college, but it's like a witchcraft academy. Before she's supposed to start that with her adopted sister and best friend, they're walking home from a club, and they end up being chased by these tattooed pursuers, a Hellseer and a warlock. And they have this like random tattoo on their neck that she doesn't recognize. And usually the Hellseers are usually bounty hunters with these different like criminal organizations or like houses. They have to be tattooed on their neck with which house they're from. And these people that are pursuing them have this random tattoo on their neck that she doesn't recognize. Instead of just like wanting to kill them because they're demons, or wanting to abduct her adopted sister, who's the daughter of a general, they're looking to adopt her. And Lauren doesn't get it because she's just 100% human, and she is enrolled in at the Witchcraft Academy, but she has no special powers that she knows of, and she's not a special person, and she has no special magical artifacts. So she doesn't understand why they want her, and instead of taking her, when the cops roll up, they take her best friend because she's closer, and they take her away into the night. And so Lauren becomes kind of obsessed with finding her friend, Sabrine. Unfortunately, that's not the last of the people coming at her, for which reasons she doesn't know. But essentially what happens at the beginning is the next person who pursues her is Darien Castle. And Darien Castle is a demon slayer, or dark slayer, sorry, they're called dark slayers. He's a dark slayer who is like at the top of his house. He's the leader of his house of the 7 devils, and he is paid an absurd amount of money to track her aura and bring her in. And normally he'll track anyone. It's usually demons, bad guys, kind of criminals on the run. I mean, he's a bounty hunter, so he'll take any kind of filth. But then he runs into Lauren, and he's like, wow, she has a pure aura, she's a human, why am I being paid so much money to bring her in? What do they want with her? And as he's kind of wondering this, as he's pursuing her, he realizes that she's also being pursued by another group of people. What ensues is basically he decides that he's too curious about why they want her to take her in blindly, so he decides to help her figure out why they want her, what could be special about her, and to keep her safe from those pursuing her. So it's kind of like a bodyguard romance. I will say it gave me also a little bit of like, oh, she's different than everyone else. Like, yeah, she's so beautiful and perfect in every way, and you know, men would give their eye teeth to be with her, but usually I don't care about women like that. But maybe it's her attitude, her pushback that makes me me like interested in her or want to save her. And it was just a little bit trite for me, a little bit shallow. It does develop the relationship between the two of them, and the world building is really unique and interesting. So I did think that it was a good book, but I would probably give it like a 4 stars again. And I will continue it. There's 2 other books in the series out right now, and I'm gonna read them. I don't know if that's the end of the series, and I am excited to continue it. It's just, it felt like it wasn't a hit out of the park. Anyway, what else did I read? I also read An Ember in the Ashes, which is another fantasy book. It's the first in a series. The second is A Torch Against the Night. The third is A Reaper at the Gates. And the last one is A Sky Beyond the Storm. And honestly, I picked this up for 2 reasons. One, it's a completed fantasy series, and I wanted to read a complete one because it's so hard to read a fantasy book and then like 2 years later pick up another one. I found that with Fourth Wing, and then like with Onyx Storm, which was the last release in that series, I felt really lost at the beginning because it had been a while since I'd read the second one. I just hate that feeling. So I wanted to read a completed one, so I picked this up, and I also really loved the cover and the title. This one is kind of like, I mean, I feel like a lot of fantasy deals with rebel factions against like an empire, and this is that basically in a nutshell. But I will say that the mystery is super intriguing. And I will say that I don't know if it's because her name's Leia or because it was the rebels or whatever, but this did give me Star Wars vibes. Not in a bad way, and it's not sci-fi, it's fantasy, but it just did give me those vibes. And I think that it made me like it more actually because I really like Star Wars. But this one was really good. It's basically a lot of hallmarks of fantasy. Rebels versus the Empire, a military academy, and that's where like it's predominantly set, at least the first book. And I do love academy fantasy books because it kind of gives like CW vibes. I don't know if you ever watched CW shows, but that always kind of is what it reminds me of. If you liked Fourth Wing, I do think that you'd like this series because again, it's set in an academy, and there's this like rebel faction. Her brother is arrested for treason. It's a really layered and complex story. I will say that I don't think that like the romance between Leia and Elias is heavily developed in this book, but I believe that it will be more so in the ensuing books. So I'm excited to continue the series, and I did enjoy this book. Another book that I read that I have talked about but has to be repeated is Save Your Breath by Kandi Steiner. I love Kandi Steiner as a person and as an author. She writes really angsty and wonderful romances. Mia and Alex, heroine and hero of Save Your Breath. It is a pop star, hockey star romance. So Mia Love is a pop star. She's had a bit of run of bad luck, bad publicity. She had an ex-boyfriend who was awful to her, but basically kind of warped the narrative in the press, so it makes her look not so great. And then Alex is a bit of a bad boy, hockey boy, so he keeps getting into fights, and because of that, he's in trouble with his team. So they are childhood friends. They've actually known each other for years, and they've kind of fallen out of touch just because they're both really popular and really busy with their superstar lives, but they end up coming back together to have a fake dating agreement to help both of their public images. And this is where things really get interesting, and I feel like Kandi did such a good job with this trope. I think because they were childhood friends to this fake dating to lovers, it really felt like such an organic transition for them, and they had so much depth to their relationship and so much history that really peppers the story and makes you feel like they're soulmates, which I love. Yeah, I just loved everything about the story. I thought it was really great. I love her banter between the characters. She's so good at developing like the palpable tension between their banter even before they do anything spicy. It is a slower burn, which I don't mind at all. I loved that because I love seeing the relationship develop. I feel like it's really organic that way. And I also really loved like the musical aspect. She obviously did a lot of research for Mia and her pop star life. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I love Kandi's books. I'll read anything she writes. I think she's just fantastic. So highly recommend that as well. It's free on Kindle Unlimited too. Finally, I read Mine by Riley Hart, which is kind of an erotic romance. It's forbidden. It's an age gap. It's dad's best friend, and there's BDSM, a lot of kink exploration. Basically, the two heroes get together online before they realize their actual connection, and then obviously when they realize that they're connected through the dad, they try to stop, but it's already too late. JT is the younger hero. He's the son, and he is like wanting to explore this world of kink. He feels like Marshall is like a safe place to do it. So they enter into this agreement to just have this like sexual exploration relationship, but obviously feelings get involved, and obviously it's super forbidden because it's his dad's best friend. So it has a lot of angst and turmoil, but it's also a super spicy read, and I really just wanted like a palate cleanser after reading all of those fantasy books, and this one was really good. I love Riley Hart. They are one of my absolute favorite romance authors. Recommend anything by them, but I will say that Crossroads is still my #1 favorite book by Riley Hart. And then I read a ton of different fanfics because I always have to read fanfics, but I am going to do a separate vlog about that. I also went through 2 of my own books for different reasons. One was The Frenchman, which got this beautiful new cover. It used to be The Affair, and I reread this one recently for reasons, mostly marketing reasons, but I hadn't read it in years. I actually wrote this back in 2016, 2015, so that was a long time ago, coming up on 10 years, and I was just curious to see how my writing has changed or grown, and I really enjoyed it. This is probably one of my least popular books. It's one of my most favorite ones because it's cheating and it's super angsty. This series is called The Evolution of Sin. Basically, Giselle meets Sinclair on vacation in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and they agree to have a no strings attached holiday affair, even though she knows that he has a girlfriend back home. And then the next book takes place when she goes back home and realizes that Sinclair is in her life in a way that she never could have predicted. So if you really like angsty romances and you don't mind the cheating trope, where they cheat with each other, definitely pick this one up. It's also the first book in my Lombardi world. So this is about Giselle, who is one of the sisters in the Lombardi family. And then the next series in that world is The Enslaved Duet with Cosima Lombardi, who is the youngest sister. And then there's Antiheroes in Love Duet with Elena, who is the oldest sister. And then finally there's The Moon on His Tides, which is about Sebastian Lombardi, who is the only brother in the family. And his next 2 books in the trilogy come out later this year. I also ended up going through My Dark Fairy Tale, which is my book coming out with Amazon Publishing on April 8th. Actually, by the time this goes live, this will be live. So you can pick this up in Kindle Unlimited. And it is a Italian mafia romance. So it's set in Tuscany, which is one of my favorite areas in the whole world. So it's kind of my love letter to Italy. And I was rereading it to pull content, and I actually wrote this well over a year ago. So it was fun to just reacquaint myself with this while I was like starting to promote the book heavily again. And I just love this story. I love Guinevere. She's kind of a young, naive American girl who decides to go against her father's wishes, and she takes a summer abroad in Italy. Her father is Italian and basically has forbidden his family to ever go to Italy. He hates it, but Guinevere decides to go anyway because she's always been super intrigued. And first day there, she is hit by a car and meets Raffaele Romano, who ends up being her dark knight in shining armor. She doesn't realize that he's a mafioso, and he keeps that secret from her while also falling in love with her. So if you like hidden identity, mafia romance, age gap, set in Italy, you want to be transported to my favorite country in the world, definitely pick up My Dark Fairy Tale. It is live now and free in Kindle Unlimited. And that is all the books that I read in March. I feel like I had a really great month. Let me know if you read any of the same books that I did, or if you have any thoughts or opinions on them, or any suggestions for what I should read in April. Anyway, thanks for watching, you guys. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you next week for more.